one of the things that motivated Dr. Pete Peterson to come forward was his own increasing distaste at the projects which he had been involved in. And one of the many things we talked to him about was about what is known colloquially as the Super Soldier Program. And to refer to a human being as this sort of asset, this disposable asset in the Super Soldier Program, tells you a little bit about how the powers that be regard the human life and the human spirit. And Duncan will tell you a little bit about this himself in the hour that he has available. But Duncan is the first generation of this particular program. And off record, we talked to Dr. Pete Peterson, and I've got to be a little careful about this, but he talked about Duncan OFINIAN being the first generation of this program. And when we mean the first generation, we're not talking about fathers and sons, we're talking about leaps in technology. Like the first generation aircraft was the Wright brothers. The second generation aircraft was a Second World War early fighter jet. The third generation aircraft is the B-2 bomber. The fourth generation aircraft are the things that officially do not exist and which fly off in the secret space program. The Super Soldier Program is now in its fourth generation, and we were told some details about this.
At least.
And I am still trying to. I'm still trying to. At least. I'm just reporting. Kerry said at least. That may be true.
No, it's just that we don't know what generation for sure, because we don't know, they haven't let on.
I'm just reporting what Dr. Peterson told us.
The part was called Project Talent. But go ahead.
Yeah, and so... So, what you're going to hear just now is the personal story of somebody who is well described as a real-life Jason Bourne. He's trying to discover his identity. He's trying to figure out who did this to him and why, and what happened, and what memories he still has to recover in the past that are still blank. We're very privileged to count him as a personal friend. He's got a man. He's a man the heart the size of a planet. We love him to pieces. And the best story here is told from him in person. This is the important part of conferences like this. When you're looking at a little video, which is 2 inches by 3 inches on your computer screen, or reading a transcript, is not the same as hearing the words spoken from the heart of the man who's been so deeply affected by these programs. And Duncan OFINIAN, please come to the stage.
Throw that in a pocket.
Duncan is a highly gifted psychic, among other things. And I do want to say that when Bill was talking about first generation and so on, actually what we're talking about, the logical progression of that becomes robots. Okay? Becomes things like the Terminator, becomes things like human beings that are combined with machines who have limbs that have been enhanced, and I'm sure that Duncan can clarify this for you. But that's where we're going with this. So I just wanted to be a little more specific, not quite so general, so that you understood where we're going with this. And there is no superficial relationship between some of the things that Pete Peterson was involved in and we are not allowed to talk about, and what the other levels of what Duncan was the first, if you will, test case, or the main test case, the prototype, however you want to put it, the human prototype. Okay, so with those leading comments, you can take that where you will. Duncan OFINIOAN.
Thank you. Well, I did not expect this. Thank everybody for showing up this morning, especially Bill and Carrie and Project Camelot for letting me do this. I have no clue before I talk what I'm going to say. I just walk up and let it come out. I'll start with, as Bill was alluding to, the generations of this project. He is correct. This is basically the fourth generation that we're in now. I was first generation 1960s. There was a previous generation in the 1950s that was a failed experiment. So basically, in my generation, they started the program all from scratch. And we're right now, if my information is correct, in the fourth generation. What I'd like to do tonight, or this morning, I'm still on East Coast time, I don't know what time it is. I'm going to try something different. I'm going to try to stay away for the first 20 minutes or so from any scientific standpoint. What I'd like everyone to do is just take a couple of deep breaths, exhale it slowly, relax yourself. I'm going to try a little experiment of my own and see how it goes. We're going to tell a little story. The story starts in the winter of 1966. And if anybody knows what eastern Kentucky looked like in 1966, well, you're better than I am because I don't remember. You're talking two-lane roads, mostly gravel. Eastern Kentucky in the 1960s looked like a throwback to the 1920s. And that's where I'm from. Well, one winter afternoon, I'm loaded up in a truck by my parents. And I'm taken to a hardware store. It's the only hardware store in the entire county. And in the back of that store is a room that has a hidden door. I have walked by that wall with the door numerous times with my dad and my granddad. Did not know what was there. So I was taken in with my mom, by my mom, and we went through the door. And in this room was about 8 to 12 other kids about my age. I was 6 years old. And they're all sitting at these little low kindergarten type tables. And they all have puzzles. And they're trying to put the puzzles together. Now, walking around the room is a lady of European descent with an extremely heavy accent. And she comes over to me and helps me take my jacket off and sets me down and asks me if I'd like to play. 6 years old. Of course I want to play. She gives me some puzzle pieces and says, make a picture out of the pieces. Well, for years, since I started to regain all my memories, we had thought that the test itself was making the correct picture with the puzzle pieces. We don't believe that's so now. What we think it was now was the lady's name was Helga. She was a transmitter.
Can you talk just a little bit louder for us? Because if you hold the microphone out,
Okay.
just a little bit closer. Thank you.
She's a good friend of mine. I'm allowed. What we believe now is that Helga was a sender, a transmitter, a psychic transmitter. And the test was to see if I would be a strong enough receiver. Because as the project transgressed through the years, we were mated up with another. One being the transmitter, one being the receiver. One being the spotter, one being the shooter. And that's how we wound up being 2 and 3-person teams, sometimes 5. Okay? But we were always together, the psychic, the soldier. Now, I'm just going to jump around a little bit because I have an hour, and I'm going to assume most of you have seen the interview at one time or another. Okay. Project Talent. The easiest way to explain what Project Talent was, it's basically, or was basically, the taking of other people's talents and using it for their own purposes. Each one of us taken into this project had a specific talent, which the government took, trained, increased, enhanced, and exploited. We were never supposed to regain our memories, but some of us have. In 1966, in the group that I was in, there was 1,000 of us. There's less than 20 today. Half didn't survive. Now, the process, well, first of all, how many knows what multiple personality disorder is? Yeah, it's about what I expected. What they did with us is they split our personalities. This was artificially induced. And if you look at one of the paintings on the back wall, when you have a chance, you'll see a graphic description of what was done. The alternate personality is the one that was trained in every martial art known to humankind. We were trained to fly every aircraft there was at that time. We were trained in every aspect that you could think of, every art of war, every part of the military there was. We were, in essence, a par elite of soldiers. And we were used all around the world. A lot of our assignments were for termination. A good deal was for intelligence gathering. But by and large, we were assassins, pure and simple. And someone needs to be held responsible for this. So where do we start? Who do we hold responsible now? I'm 50 years old. The people who did this to us in my generation are probably long gone. However, the projects continue under different names, different guises. They still continue. So how do we stop it? Anybody? How do we stop it? I'm just a loudmouth on a stage. That's one. How about we turn ourselves against them? We were created to be a private army in the future. People ask me, what if you're exposing this, you went through all this, why are you still alive? I'm still alive for two reasons. I was part of a project. The project has not ended. It's still ongoing. The reason most of us are still alive is they hope to activate us one last time and be the protectors, the private army of the elite of this country. I'm not going to do it. And I don't know any of us that will. Now, what I'm going to do for the rest of my time is kind of turn this over to the audience. You know, I don't have a whole lot new to talk about. I've pretty much done that. There's a lot of new things that is still in the hypothesis stage. I never say anything as fact unless I have 3 points of reference and proof to back it up. So what I like to do is turn this over to kind of a quasi Q&A, if you don't mind. So if anybody has anything that they would like me to add on to or to explain more, let's do that for a while. Yeah. She got her hand up before you.
Duncan, why don't we have people queue up over here so we can
That's
have a
fine.
mic?
Cool.
We'll save time.
Okay.
I know with your multiple personality, they have a way of triggering, to change you. Have you found with any of the other people or with yourself, any way to be able to stop that? Whether it be like, I know that we have a third eye and a calcify, and, some way that you can fight back by not allowing that to be turned on, because how would you have any control if they turned on something that you don't have any control over?
Well, what happened with me is I was in a car accident about 12 years ago, and I had to have an MRI done on my skull, and it didn't like the chip, or the chip didn't like it. So it's not completely deactivated, but it's been damaged enough. What's going on now with some of us is, this is going to sound so unbelievable. Our alternate personalities are beginning to merge with our primary personalities. What was once two people are now becoming one. And that is something that the Illuminati, the elite, the bankers, whatever title you want to put on them, that is something that scares them to death. Because the alternate personalities are integrating our memories, our emotions, that they can't have.
You mentioned in the video that you have some telekinetic abilities. And are you able to consciously control these, or in this personality at this point? And I'd sure love to see a demonstration. And also, do you know how, can you recall and train other people on how to use some of the stuff you've learned?
Yeah, Amazing Randy would like to see that too. Most of any psi abilities that I have are tied into the alternate personality. One of the reasons that I was the shooter is because I was best at being a soldier, not the psychic spy, not the remote viewer. I was one of the worst remote viewers in the world. I was more suited to be a physical, augmented soldier.
Yeah, hi Duncan. I have a book, it's called The Mind Controlling of America, and I understand that you were programmed as a soldier. This book, the topic of the book is about women that were groomed from the time they're very small to be basically sex slaves for a lot of people that are in power.
Project Monarch.
And for dark ceremonies in order to control the kind of the orgasmic energy into the darkness.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, do you know about this?
That's that's Kundalini magic. That ties in. A lot of these programs use ritualistic magic, and it is dark magic. So yeah, I am aware of what you're talking about.
Yeah, because she claims to have had sexual relationships with a lot of people in power throughout the years. Her and a bunch of women that, like you, are starting to remember and have shattered multiple personalities, very similar. So,
Right.
anyway, just thought
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for being here. I read Ender's Game, and I just want to know, have you read Ender's Game? And I guess, have they tried to take these people off planet to cover it up? And like, how much of that is true or false?
Okay. I didn't quite understand.
Oh, have you ever read the book Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I don't watch movies. I don't read books. I stay away from it as much as I can.
Because your story reminds me of Ender's Game, and basically Orson Scott Card writes about grooming a 6-year-old to fight the alien invaders that will be coming in the future. But in Ender's Game, what happens is that, the government wants to cover everything up, and so they ultimately take people off planet. So I was just wondering if you knew.
I'm familiar with what you're saying, but I really couldn't answer anything with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
I guess we all have books and could kind of relate to this. And mine is Transformation of America.
I'm familiar.
TRANC.
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
In that particular book, pedophilia was one of the means they used to create the multiple personality. And I just wondered, is pedophilia a part of your...
I have no memory of sexual abuse. This is the reason I wanted to do the Q&A. Every question is leading me into the explanation I was wanting to get into. My alternate was instilled due to trauma-based torture. Okay, I was, over a period of time, what a lot of people think when they see the previous interviews is that once I was taken from Kentucky to wherever I went, this was done instantaneous over one day. No, this took place over weeks and months. All right, we started out with being strapped into a wooden chair with the strobe lights, being talked to, slapped around. I learned what waterboarding was by the time I was 7. Okay. Then they would start with the needles under the fingernails. They would do 1, and a few days, maybe a week later, 2. The purpose for this was to increase the pain tolerance. Okay, they wanted us to have a pain tolerance that was unbelievable, so that they could finally get to the point to where they had all 10 fingernails with needles underneath, and then an electric current being put through them. Then I was given a drug so that I could not faint. I couldn't black out. So at that point, your psyche has a choice to split off to an alternate personality or die. I split. Most of them didn't. Does that help? Does that help?
I think you're very brave to come to this sort of meeting. I would think you're going to be at risk. But anyway, you were mentioning that there were initially 1,000 recruits. Now, did all 1,000 go through the program, or you said there are only 20 remaining?
It's my understanding that there's only 20 of us remaining alive. The 1,000 that were taken into the project in 1966, we were first generation augmented individuals. They were from all over the world. I remember kids from Australia, England. When I say all over the world, I'm talking about the allied countries that we had at that time. I do know that the former Soviet Union was working on a very similar program, as well as China was working on a similar program. There was one incident in my early 20s when I went up against one of my Soviet counterparts. I lost that one.
How did your parents react to this? Did they have a problem with that?
My parents? I'm going to be diplomatic. No, it's a good question. It's an excellent question. My father was in the CIA. That's how my involvement came about. This is a generational project. I haven't spoken to my mother or my siblings in over 20 years, and I have no desire to. What do they think about this? They would probably as soon see me in the ground right now, and that's being diplomatic.
Duncan, I'm very sympathetic with your state. The severe trauma that makes the multiple personality disorder. And in fact, most of our soldiers who go abroad and experience trauma experience something called post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
So you have a very severe case of that. And I would like to suggest, if you didn't know about it, there are some very good mind-body medicine techniques that can be used to really release the trauma and the emotions connected with the trauma that could possibly lead to a healing. And when you said that you felt that the various personalities were beginning to merge, actually I think that's the mind-body trying to heal. But I think the point is that you want to get rid of the traumatic stress disorder so that you can go back to being your whole self. So if you want more information about that, I may be able to help you.
Sure, thank you. The problem with that, with the personalities merging, when that begins to take place, we really don't have a choice. We either let the personalities merge together, we let the implanted personality take control, which would not be a good thing, or we become one person, kind of right down the middle with the original and the augmented. Something that at least has some emotions and some understanding of right and wrong. The alternate personality has, at that time, before the beginning merge, has no emotions. Right and wrong means nothing. Okay, simply follow orders.
Duncan, thank you for being here and sharing with us today.
Thank you.
It's probably been a couple years since I'd seen your interview. I was wondering if you could talk about the experience when you were in a team, as you were youngsters, when you came in. I don't remember if you guys stood in a semicircle or a full circle, but took out the enemy. If you could discuss your perspective on the energetic mechanics of what was going on, how you did that, and perhaps some of the other phenomena that might have been similar.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. We were in Cambodia. We weren't supposed to be in Cambodia during Vietnam, okay? But we were there. There are some people in this room that were there. After we're finished, if anybody wants to talk to them, I'll introduce you. We were flown in as part of a rescue operation. A couple of SEAL teams and OSS teams were pinned down by Khmer Rouge fire. The process by what we did, I really don't have an explanation. But you're correct. We came out and we formed a semicircle facing the direction of the enemy fire. And we do have some more information on that since we did the interview. There were 12 of us. I was team leader. Consider each of us as an individual acted as a battery. And we transferred all that energy into something else. It was a 13th person. But we don't know who the 13th person was. A 13, again, being a ritual number. The number of dead that day numbered in the hundreds. We then got back on the chopper and we flew off.
So I take it that was also another aspect of the training that one of the other personalities is schooled in.
Correct.
Interesting.
Thanks.
Thank you, Duncan, for being here. Very brave.
Thank you.
I watched the video with Dave Corso, and you seem to have more memory than he did. He doesn't seem to be have the memories that you do, or it doesn't seem to be as stable. Was he in your program, or was he the generation that failed?
No, Corso was not in my particular project. He was in a different sub-project. Okay, Project Talent wasn't the only game in town with all this. There were a dozen sub-projects going on. For example, Project Talent fell underneath the umbrella of MK Ultra. MK Ultra being a catch-all phrase for anything concerning mind control. There were 172 different sub-programs under MK Ultra, Project Talent being one. And Project Talent was where I began, and then I was moved, as I said a lot of times, when I have Project Talent, it's like going to school, okay? And I was moved from Project Talent to the Ultimate Warrior Project, because I was more suited to be a physical soldier than a mental/psychic soldier. To answer your question about Dave Corso began getting his memories back right the time he should. Late 50s, pushing 60, 61. That is when the blocks began to wear down and the memories start to come together. He got them back right at the perfect time. I got my memories back because of an automobile accident. If I had not had the accident, I don't think I'd be standing up here right now. I would probably still be utilized, and I would probably be in the Middle East right now.
Oh, you'd still be working?
I have no doubt that I would still be part of the program.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Dan. I grew up in eastern Kentucky, so I'm very familiar with that area. And the people that live there, their history. One of the interesting things about that area was that in the 15 and 1600s, a lot of people that populated those mountainous areas were people from the British Isles.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, I don't say all, I know some, not every included, were running from the law. So they populated those mountains, and they were very closely knit and still are as a community. And my question to you is, can you talk about, you mentioned that your grandfather was in Truett. Can you talk about that at all and how that has affected you?
I had two grandfathers at that time. One's name was Bull. He was a full-blood Cherokee. The other was my father's stepfather. And I grew up more with my father's stepfather than I did the other. What county or what town were you from? Ashland? And you're not old? Okay, I know where you're from. But yeah, you're absolutely right. During that time, the mountains were littered with people that bail bondsmen would have loved to have seen. It probably still are. In all honesty, I have not been back there in 17 years. It's been that long since I've been back. And I seriously doubt if I will ever go back. Okay.
Duncan, you talked about how the two personalities for those less than 20 of you from your group who are still here is merging, those
right.
two personalities. And that those in power are fearful of that, I believe you said. They don't want that to happen.
Right.
Can you just touch a little bit on that and why? What's causing those two personalities at this time to merge?
What's causing the merging? We have no clue, and neither do they, because it was not supposed to take place. What terrifies them about the two personalities merging? My alternate personality, one of my alternates, I have four. Two of them, we don't know how they got there. Okay. My primary alternate is known as Omega Unit 197. He knows where all the bodies are buried. He has all the knowledge, all the locations, the dates, the places, the bank accounts, etc. Imagine when we finally merge, I'll have that knowledge in this personality. That better terrify them, because I will turn it against them.
Hi there. I just want to sort of step in here and sort of help move things along here. Duncan, you're doing a great job. There's some interesting energy in the room right now. Miriam Delicato, are you in the audience? She there? Okay, if she is, could she please come on stage? Thank you. This is Dave Corso. Bill, are you with us? Thank you. Okay.
I needed a break for a minute.
We're just giving Duncan a little breather here, and I'd like David Corso to say a few words to you. Duncan does have more than one alternate, and he is investigating this very deeply. You have to understand that when somebody does that, breaking down those walls makes them very vulnerable, and if you've seen the recent Terminator movie, it's no lie. Okay, so you just follow that character's trajectory in trying to find out what was done to him and watch his emotions, and you'll have some clue as to what's going on here, okay? So if you haven't seen the movie, I encourage you to do so, because it's really to the point. Dave Corso.
Thank you. It takes courage on your part to be where you are.
Thank you.
Let me explain to you how I met Duncan in this iteration of life. We had a mutual friend named John Morrow. John Morrow was the 13th member of the team. When the helicopter landed in, PTSD, there's an energy in here that's working now on me. Bring it on.
I suspect
and I'm all for you, because I'm going to
that's
send it back
what
to
it
you
was.
100,000 times with love. Because that deserves Cambodia. My team was sent to rescue another Special Forces type team.
Move over here so we're all...
We had problems.
Sit down.
I called for backup. Well, about 10 minutes later, the CH-47 Chinook lands and these 12 kids get out. What the hell is this? Bullets flying everywhere. There's this little kid with a big afro. A white kid. That one right there. I said, what the hell is this? Before I could ask the question, these kids form a circle, join hands, and there's a thunderclap and a flash of light like I've never seen. I look at the helicopter as my vision comes back, and there's a guy. I said, I don't know who the hell that guy is. I don't know what his uniform is. He was an officer in the Army, I think. Make a long story short, they flew away. We got the other team who were sent to rescue, and I said, Master Sergeant, what do you know? What do you recall? He said, blinding flash, bullet stopped. And there were hundreds of Viet Cong bodies as we wended our way back out, and we got to our chopper and got out of there. About 2 weeks later in Saigon, I run across this officer again. And he had this horrified look on his face. He had an insignia on his shoulder that I have never seen before. Okay, that was 1967. Let's fast forward to 1992. I'm in Pahrump, Nevada with my computer shop, and this guy walks through the door. And my first instinct was to kill him. And I said, why do I feel that way? Well, as he introduced himself, his name was John Morrow. As he and I talked, I could sense there was something unusual about this gentleman. Well, John and I got to be good friends, and one day, after I had closed my shop, John was over because I was doing some work on his computer. I said, let me tell you, John, what I first experienced with you. I said, when you first came in my shop, I said, my first instinct was to kill you, and John Morrow's face got ashen white. I said, I know you from Vietnam. I says, when you introduced Duncan and I in this iteration, you were surprised that we knew each other, and you were even more surprised that Sean and I knew each other. I said, you didn't expect that. He said, no. He gave me some more background on Dunk because he was one of Dunk's trainers. John Morrow was a very unassuming gentleman. When you look at him, you think, what a big teddy bear. John loved cats. John loved my dogs. John was my friend. But he was a robot. There's a robot or two in here today. I no longer sense there being a danger. But when I met Dunk, and I'm not telling the story about the yellow snake either. That's a story for another time, but you won't believe it. I didn't. My son, I have a son that's named David Thomas. He has an unusual knack of, he'll ask me what I think are stupid questions till I think about it. My nightmare started in 1983. and my son and I are sitting in a little two-man rubber life raft fishing in Strawberry Lake in California. He looked at me and said, "Daddy, I got a question for you." I said, "What's that?" He says, "What did you do in Vietnam? What did you really do? Because at times, man, you just act really weird." I said, "He's 9 years old. What's he asking me if I did in Vietnam for?" I said, "I think I did this." That night, the nightmare started. Duncan and I have been through iterations of life together, as have Allison and I and Laura and I. I'm here to meet people to tell you this. Whatever Duncan says, you can take it to the bank. Dunk has other information that I don't know if he's going to share today or not that I'm privy to. He talked about teams of 3. Well, the third member is here today. I'm the anchor, Dunk's the soldier, and we have the outlook. This iteration of outlook. There are more than one. I am so grateful that I live in this country. I had an opportunity to go to work for the Russians after my term was over in the U.S. military. I looked at this guy and I says, "What are you going to give me? Make me a major for 6 months to get my information and kill me?" As I turned to walk away, he was gone. That quick. Happened on a street in Oakland, California. You all have good hearts and souls, but I've seen one thing, because my talent is taking a mosaic and making a picture. A lot of you have a lot of the pieces. We need to sit down as a group and not design a camel, which is a horse designed by committee, but sit as a group, bring out one truth. The truth stands by itself. And what is the truth? Well, it's something that's politically acceptable today that may not be politically acceptable tomorrow. Or the truth is this: relaying an event or situation exactly as it is without taking to or adding from that event to make someone right or somebody wrong. Believe me, I know that's true. People say I'm crazy. Oh, I'm not crazy. It just happens you're not in my normal realm. I have wolves. I raise wolves. And I have a wolf that lives in my house. He's a purebred wolf.
What is mine?
You can dream on all you want. I have a wolf named Herc. And Duncan and I made a 300-mile trip?
4.
It was about a 400-mile trip one way. I took Herc with me because I felt so inspired. Now, this wolf was what, 4 months old?
Mm-hmm.
He was 4 months old. He got in the car, and just like it was normal. 150 miles down the road, he stands up and looks at Duncan, looks at me, and I said, "I think we better stop." He had to do his thing. He got back in the car. We drove on. We got to our destination. And I said, I thought to myself, this is a purebred wolf. And this woman had 2 little dogs, as I recall.
Yeah. And a cat.
And a cat. My wolf got along fine with them. Coming home. Thank you, Bart. I appreciate that.
You had to do it, didn't you?
Well, I got a thing with dogs. Anyways, as we were coming home, we stopped at a well-known sandwich shop, and we got 2 burgers. 2 for Dunk, 2 for me, and 2 for the dog. You know what? My dog wouldn't eat them. He buried them in the seat. I found them the next day. So much for loving it, I guess. But I have had some amazing adventures with Dunk. Sitting in my living room, like it says in the interview, Now, stereo and things were turned off. They shouldn't make a noise, right? How about a loud pop that hurts your ears? Have you ever experienced that? Electronics go pop? It's a psychic attack. You were there, you should know. You thought your twin sister was there. I have a lot of fun with life. Things seem to be clear in here now, and if they're not, bring it on, Etnity, I'm ready for you.
That's right. Let's take a couple of the other questions here, and you got two people. You can ask either one. Duncan has actually got a mic on him. Duncan, say a few words so we can make sure it's working.
Does it work? Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Okay, hi. I'm just wondering, if we were to look at X-ray photographs of your arm, your shoulder, and your head, do we see anything interesting in those?
You would see metallic objects. I have X-rays and photographs of the implant in my left hand, the cranial implant. I don't have one of the shoulder because I can't seem to get my HMO to pay for it.
Do you think you could release those online for us?
Pardon?
Could you release those photographs online for us?
They are.
They are?
They are.
Are they on your website?
They're on my website, yeah.
Thanks.
DuncanO'Finnon.com.
If you could say that website one more time.
DuncanO'Finnon.com.
First, I just want to thank you both for being here today and for being courageous enough to speak with us and tell your story. I do have a few questions. One is Project Talent. What were some of the other talents that the children expressed? And if you could introduce us to some of them that are remaining today.
Project Talent, like Duncan said, is a far-reaching talent, a far-reaching program, rather. My talent, among others, is taking a mosaic of little bits of information and giving you a very clear picture. That was been brought home this weekend. There are people here that I was meant to meet. There's 3 in the back room right now. I wasn't taken for periods of time. I was taken for the summers. I was a summer school, so to speak. My training started when I was 6 years old, when my brother brought home, who happened to be a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps at the time, brought home a .22 target rifle. That was part of my training because he was also in early Project Talent, as I found out later. But I would be gone in the summer, come home in time to go to school. And I had all these memories of being with my Uncle Ed, who was a peddler, great con man. I asked my mother one time before she died, I said, "Mom, I got a question for you." And she said, "What?" I said, "I have these memories of being with my Uncle Ed in the summertime, going out on the road." She says, "You were never with your Uncle Ed." I said, "Then what did I do?" She said, "When you get older, you'll figure it out." And Mother gave me that smile that says, "You've asked enough questions." Mother, God rest her soul, went home in 1993. Before she went, she showed me a journal she had kept at the time I was in the service. Every time I got hurt, every time something significant happened on a mission, she wrote down where I was, what I was doing, and where I got hurt or what the event was. I said, "How did you know this?" She says, "I am your psychic anchor." I said, "I didn't know that." She said, "There's lots you don't know yet." And my mother, God rest her, was an angel. Boy, could she be a holy terror. Now, I'm different than Dunk. I don't have any Native American blood in me that I know of. However, I say I'm Sicilian, that's because my mother was Scotch-Irish. My father was purebred Sicilian, and I was raised by my grandparents. And it's interesting to know that when I was talking to the third member of our team, Friday morning, I'm laying in bed at my niece's before I come over here, at 4:30 in the morning, and I said, "Hey, Allie, it's 4:30. Send a message to him, but he never gets it. I asked Allie, I says, "What happened at 4:30 this morning?" She said, "I woke up out of a sound sleep and sat up and said, 'What's this?'" Psychic abilities are alive and well. I'm just finding out what mine are. I never thought to even question myself about it. But last night we were sitting in the cafe. Allie and I looked at each other at the same time, and somebody was there. Somebody was there. There was a psychic vampire, was the second thing we noticed. Robots don't know they're being used. They don't know what training they've had. They have no knowledge, no memory. So we can't hold it against them personally. But understand, as many people as there are different programs, because everybody has different natural native talents that have to be capitalized on. And I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you did. I have two more, actually.
Go ahead.
You almost actually leaded into them. The second question is, how can we locate, communicate with the members of the subsequent programs, the next generations that they were talking about, and help them to understand what's going on with them?
I don't think you want to. We are the way we are without explanation. We don't have one. As I said earlier, we were never supposed to retrieve our memories, at least not at this age. I helped Dave get his back. I got mine back due to an automobile accident. So I woke up early. The generation of people that are in this project today, which would be the fourth generation, geez, that is a very scary thought, to try to locate one of these guys and communicate and try to reason with that person if they're in an altar.
We have some information about the fourth generation that I think, in the context of what you've told us, we should maybe say a few words about. These soldiers are not human. They can sit in a doctor's surgery and pass the tests, and the doctor would not know if it was not an invasive test. Blood pressure, reading, EEG, ECG, they'd pass the test. They'd be a healthy, strong-looking, quite large, muscular-looking man. The person who told us this once had a company, had a corporation, and the name of that corporation was Cyberdyne. Anyone seen the Terminator movies? Okay. This is a reference to what we heard yesterday about how the reality merges into the Hollywood movie industry as a way of, I believe, primarily as a way of disguising the truth, because when somebody says, hey, you know, these Stargates are real, then they get laughed at because it was just something that came out of a movie script. This is how they hide things like that. Cyberdyne is one of those examples. The person who told us this, we pushed quite a lot. We had quite an interesting conversation about it, and we were given to understand that one of the functions, one of the many functions of these soldiers, for lack of a better word, of course they can go into space without any problem at all. They don't need to breathe. And the numbers of these soldiers, we were told, was something in the region of 15,000. They've never been deployed in combat, we were told, because then their existence would be revealed. But whoever the enemy is, and we're not sure in this context, they are given to believe that they exist, but they've never been used. Now, that's pretty much all I know. I'd like to ask Dave and Duncan here whether this fits with what you believe you understand. This is a conversation we haven't had.
It of necessity has to fit. I mean, Bill gave an analogy with airplanes on the generations. Let's take a better look. Let's take a look at computers. 1962, when I was first introduced to computers, that almost filled this room. Yet I have one sitting on my desk. Well, I have 6 computers in my network at home. I happen to like to play with computers. That is just, that computer is 3 years old. It has more computing power than the first 5 computers they built that were the size of this room. Now it used to be every 2 years, and it was every 18 months. Now it's every year. They double the capacity and abilities of microprocessor chips. Microprocessor chips about the size of a $50. Used to be they had one computer chip system inside here. Then there was 2. Now there's 4. Same size chip. So his analogy that he wants is, what's the 4th generation like? They're probably in 5th or 6th generation by now. That to me is absolutely terrifying. And I'm scared of damn few things in this world. And we're not talking about the yellow snake either. All right, I'll confess, I hate snakes.
Let me do something. I won't do it to you. Listen, long and short, you do not create an army unless you intend to deploy that army. This 4th generation super soldier, warrior soldier, whatever you want to call it, are some bad people. I couldn't stop one. I was the best we had at my generation. I cannot stop one. The possibility is very, very real. They will be turned loose on the American populace. What do you want to do about it? I want to stop it. If they turn this 4th generation loose on us, we're toast. And they will try to reactivate each and every one of us from 1st, 2nd, and 3rd generation to join with them. If we don't expose them now and try to at least put up a blockade, we will not have a chance. They are that good. They are that strong. They are that invincible. We have very, very little time in which to pull this thing off. So what do you want to do about it?
Just a little data point which I've just remembered. We were told that 2 of these can pick up an Abrams tank.
One thing. I can do a 1,000-pound deadlift at 49 years old and a broken neck. My neck was broken in 3 places in my car accident. I was never supposed to lift anything heavier than a cup of coffee. I can deadlift 1,000 pounds. That's 1st generation. What Bill just said about 4th generation. Think about it.
I just want to add that it's not, we have been told, okay, can't say where our source came from, but that Duncan's quite right, that the American people, for one, our target, could be the targets of some of this army at some point, okay, in the future. We were also told that a war is anticipated, if you will. 1, with China, and 2, with visiting races off planet. Okay? And that these beings that are being created actually have the capacity to handle that situation. And all of this is absolutely top secret. Absolutely. And the fact that Duncan is coming forward, and Dave Corso, and the fact that they found each other means that there's a power higher and more powerful than anything created by man. It's testimony to that. The fact that we are finding each other. There's some other people in this audience today that found us and found Dave Corso and Duncan. And they were involved as well. And some of them don't even know how deep yet, okay? Some of those people were used, again, against their will. And I have to say that, there are a lot of soldiers out there being used in very many different ways that they don't realize. There are also people, sleepers, all around us that are being used even at night in their, if you want to call it their light body, being used, okay, being trained, being utilized. So this is a very deep rabbit hole, so I just wanted to sort of paint that for you a bit. Say that again?
Blockade.
Oh, no, I said throw up a block to try, like playing football, to try to put a block up so that they can't get to you. Information. We need as many people to come forward as possible. We need you. Anything an individual can do, even if it's as little as mentioning what's talked about here on a radio program, even be a call-in, even as much as writing your congressman. I know that's a waste of time, but you can flood their offices. I know I've written the president, okay? I get fan letters. Whatever you can do, because people, this is a war. Make no mistake about it, and we are going to be fighting an enemy that you cannot imagine. Okay? So we need help. We need your help.
Yep, over here.
Right.
That's very true. That's absolutely very true, and I appreciate everything you and others that I know in here that are working right now. Okay, that's very true. But at the same time, we need a physical presence to show a physical presence that we know who you are, we know what your agenda is. We're going to stop you one way or another. All the love and light works with it. They complement each other. You can't have one without the other. That's the point that I was trying to make. And I do have a nasty habit of speaking too fast because my brain works faster than my mouth. And a lot of times it doesn't make sense. So you just have to tell me to shut up, say it again, slow down with it, and go.
It's my last question, and after I'll just offer one possible solution. But I'm glad you mentioned that everyone has talents. I was curious how the rest of everyone here, as well as around the world, can identify and develop their talents responsibly.
It's genuinely widely accepted that everyone has a certain degree of psi abilities, that we're born with that. If you're asking me how would you go about strengthening or enhancing that, first of all, stay away from anything that says project on the beginning of it.
No problem.
Except for Project Camelot, of course.
All right, my mistake. Find a teacher. Find a teacher, someone who is a white lighter, a true white lighter, and work with them. Let them teach you.
And then the possible solution, it was with the conversation with Cynthia and another one of the guests. She said that, similar to what this individual was talking about, if we can send white light energy and love, call it prayer, call it what you will, to, it's a radical idea, but to the Illuminati or the leaders out there so that they can help to understand really what they're doing and so that they will have more love and actually change their mind to prevent unleashing such a super soldier force, as well as helping to shield them in the same energies that are shielding you so that the negative energies that are around them will not be able to be around them.
Well, you raise an excellent point, but however, believe me, the Illuminati know exactly what they're doing. To pick up on what you were running with, thought equals action. So, as the lady here said, with the positive thoughts, absolutely, you can manifest those positive thoughts into reality. So what you're saying has merit and it possibly has a chance. But in the meantime, we need to have some type of preparation if it doesn't work.
Absolutely. Thank you so
I
much.
I want to say something here. What we're talking about is awareness, okay? Being awake and being aware, knowing, okay, becoming aware, just the act of learning and becoming aware, just what we're doing right here, this creates the power, okay? It's not enough to just send blind light, blind love, okay? It must be intelligent. It must have perception attached. You must do more than just give the heart, okay? You must understand what you're seeing and why you're doing what you're doing. So knowing and putting that piece together, that's the missing piece, okay? And then it's awareness, okay? What you want to convey is the awareness of all the aspects of what's going on there, okay? So if you're loving consciously, knowing all the parameters of what that means, not blindly, okay? So don't give your energy blindly. If you want to give your energy and power and light and love to the Illuminati, know what you're doing. Be conscious while you're doing it.
I want to tell you that in that respect, there's something that I've done in the past in a particular situation where there were so many people involved, there were so many levels of understanding. What I really sat and I meditated and asked my contacts, what is it that I can send to them? So I sent one message. I asked for every individual involved to see the truth, to understand it, and accept it. Because the truth will come from universal understanding and not only truth on the level of life here. So the truth would be that they are doing wrong and they would see it, they would understand it, and they would accept it. And then there is no choice at that point, comes change. So send them and send the world that the world sees and understands and accepts the truth. Thank you.
So awareness is its best defense. That's your defense, okay? Total awareness. That means when the earth and all of humanity is an awake being, one awake being, then nothing can stop you. Okay?
Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Have either of you tried hypnosis to fill in some of the blanks or merge the personalities? I know it's probably a silly question. You probably...
Oh, no, it's not a silly question at all. It's a logical assumption that we had done that. And to answer your question, yeah, I did, once. I tried to kill the therapist.
Oh.
The alternate took over and tried to kill the therapist.
I was going to volunteer, but... We'll save that.
This is an idea that some of us have actually bounced around for a couple of years, is if we can find a therapist who's willing to do this. I would have to be chained to where I couldn't move. And then you can do what you do, and but when the alternate is triggered, hopefully you'll be safe.
I'm game.
Okay, we'll definitely talk about it.
Okay.
I have a statement that is going to be very profound for you.
I have contact with beings from other worlds, and I have my whole life. I have been, the government has tried to kill me because I am a product of a hybrid program they created. But recently, when I was in Laughlin, I was very blessed to meet a man who has been taken out of his bed against his will, forced on these ships and trained, and this includes his family, trained to use alien technology to kill. And Barbara Lamb, as some of you know, did not know how to respond other than, did you try using love and light on these beings to stop them? And the gentleman said, there is no amount of love and light to stop them. And he was brought to me, and I said to him, if love and light and all these religious different things that people say, send the power of the Christ energy to them, doesn't work, perhaps they are of the light. And all of a sudden I was downloaded with information that just blew me away. And I found out there is a number of thousands upon thousands of Syrian warriors of light that are on this planet now that have the ability, with the alien technology, to protect the light workers. Not only to protect them, they will kill them if they have to, and they are designed to go up against the superhumans. And you would not believe what they are doing. I have been shown the stargates, as I know you guys know about the stargates. What's going to happen on the stargates, you know about that.
I'm not touching that one.
Okay, all right.
I do know about the Stargate.
Okay, well, I've been shown what's going to happen in the future. But I have to tell you, you have to trust in the Syrian warriors of light. They are here for a purpose. Many of them are just beginning to wake up. They also have with them, besides the army that's going to help fight against the superhumans, they also have people, including a 13-year-old girl I met, who literally can do hands-on healing. And she is also Syrian. They're waking up. They're getting ready. They're preparing. And they said, there's an urgency now to wake up. And we all need to put our own light and love behind them and with them. Because we're going to have a hard job. It's going to be very hard, but we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for being here. My question, you mentioned yesterday on the panel one of the positive things that you were doing to kind of just, for the next year, you had mentioned music. But you had just mentioned that you don't watch television or anything like that, or movies. So, and I understand that your training was probably trauma-based, but there is music triggers as well. So I'm just curious as to, is there any music that you can't, or if anything has happened, if you have listened to any music?
What I was doing yesterday was using, I think what I said about if the government controls alien ET disclosure, that we're not going to like the music at that party.
Got it.
I was just using that as a
metaphor,
comic reference. But to answer your question fully, no, I watch very little TV. As far as music goes, I stick with classical. I like Celtic music. That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah. True.
Thank you.
Duncan, in light of the purpose and the whole way that Camelot works, which is to expose and to be protected by exposure of truth, have you guys thought about doing everything you could to get actual memories with dates, times, who was killed, where they were killed, and a list of it that would fully expose the program and could have a,
That, in some respects, definitely would definitely help to expose, but it wouldn't entirely expose. What we have been doing is basically putting a call out for anyone who is involved in these projects to get in touch with us. And that, as I have made reference to with people over this weekend, my group. That's my group. We're all past unwilling participants in one project or another with this. So we're trying to come together, and by coming together and talking and putting all this together, that's how we're getting the dates, the places, and everything combined. What a lot of people have to understand is that they may remember an event at one time. I'll remember the exact same event with a different date. Then we'll have someone else who was also part of this exact same event, but they remember it at an entirely different date. And that is done because when the memory is repressed into the alternate personality, you're told it happened at this date.
but if you could check it against the actual record.
That's what we do. That's why I said earlier, I don't talk about anything as fact unless I have 3 points of reference in fact.
I do the same thing. Well, it seems to me people coming up and saying, I was this part of the program, without being able to show what was actually done, will bring people more into the awareness for this exposure.
I have a question for you. What's your memory of what happened 2 hours ago? What's your memory of what happened 2 hours ago?
It's very good.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It's different than mine is.
Yeah.
But does that make yours any the less true?
There is a physical...
Does it make your memory of what happened 2 hours ago any less true than what mine is? Yes or no?
I'm not talking about our memories. I'm talking about checking it against physical universe facts.
I'm going to give you an example here if you'll just bear with me. Yes or no? Does it change your perception of what happened 2 hours ago? Yes or no?
I actually wouldn't judge my perception that way. I would judge it by checking
You
it
have
against...
not answered my question.
All right.
The question is this: what happened 2 hours ago in your perception of what the world is and my perception of what the world is, are they the same?
No, they're not.
Does that make, by your admission, does that make yours any the less valid?
It doesn't make either one valid or invalid to me.
Thank you. You have answered your question.
The fact is that basically what happens, it also a lot depends on the age of the individual when the memory comes back. And as I said, they also screw with the memories when they repress them and push them back into the alternate, and they will, in that memory, screw with the dates.
Right,
Okay?
right.
Now, as to what you were alluding to also, is just because someone contacts us and says, I was in part of this project or this project, does that make it so? No, it doesn't. They have to go through our own little testing process to see if they really were or they weren't. But to finish up with why we have the different perceptions on dates, we really don't have a correct answer, but there'll be a dozen of us. We'll remember the exact same event, the exact same people there, but we'll remember it. I'll remember it, say, spring. He'll remember it, say, the winter. But yet the event's the same. The year will be different, the month will be different.
I understand. It just seemed to me that checking it against a historical record that is in public domain would have
I got to do this.
some effect.
The problem with that is there's a reason these are called black operations. They ain't supposed to happen. There are records, but none that we're going to be able to take and look at. So we can't do that.
There's also time travel involved here. Okay, so and there's implanted memories, false dates. There are layers upon layers So you know, it's digging into this question is actually look for real life events. It's a rabbit hole. Okay, there are so many levels based on what we've heard from various people. That includes the testimony of Henry Deacon, Arthur Neumann. Okay. And there's also something on the internet, Stephanie Relf, who interviewed her husband, called the Mars Records. Very interesting. She used some Scientology techniques as well as some other healing techniques to get to the root of some of his memories. A lot of what he did happened on other timelines simultaneously when he was other places. I mean, it gives you a beginning of understanding how the layers can happen. We actually, this is fascinating and this has been amazing. Thank you both, Duncan OFINIAN, Dave Corso. And yes, absolutely.
If I could have your attention for 1 minute. How many of you have ever got a phone call, you picked up the phone and there was nobody there? How many of you use caller ID to screen your calls? Let me tell you a little adventure I had. I had a phone call. It looked like my son was calling me.
Told you you opened up a can of worms.
However, when I picked up the phone, there were tones come out of the earpiece on the phone. It wasn't my son calling me. They can manipulate caller ID to give any number they want. If you pick up the phone and you hear something funny, or you think you hear something funny, hang the phone up. That's a very common way to initiate triggers. Just be warned when you're called. Make sure you feel comfortable answering the phone call. If I get a call from an unknown number or an 800 number or a blank number, I simply don't answer the phone.
Yeah, I have to say, you guys are being mind controlled. Okay, your televisions, you name it, the technical devices around you, scalar weaponry, it's not just these two guys, okay? It's happening to all of us. You must become aware in order to resist it, okay? So you need to know that these things, telephone calls, television programs, various anomalous events that happen in your midst, pulses sent through stereo equipment, actually wild things. We've had some things happen up here with some of this equipment. Same thing. Thank you very much for being here for this. I'm actually seeing Alex Collier in the audience. I'm opening it to, if he wants to come on stage now rather than 11 o'clock, he's welcome. We can wait until 11. It's up to you, Alex. Thank you so much for coming.